everybody. Welcome back to Hacking Your Own SAT Program. Again, sitting here with the great Jason Breitkoff. And today, we're going to talk about space considerations related to running your program. So what does that mean? So specifically, within the classroom, how do you want to set up the space to run an effective SAT class? So we're here today in our beautiful Lexington space. I don't know if we can really turn the camera, we won't today, but behind us you can see we've got about a couple feet of snow. Jason, how much snow did you get actually?
I think we got 18 inches where I live.
Yes, I won. We got 26 inches in Hopkinton. So I had to take the snowblower out twice. But anyway, I digress. I can't believe it's March and we have this much snow. But anyway, let's get to the point of why we're doing this video. I just can't seem to get the snow out of my mind. All right, so related to the space considerations, Jason. So if you were setting up just kind of an ideal class, right? How would you start from scratch? Like, in a classroom, in a school, how would you set it up?
Right, well the first thing is what you just said, in a classroom.
Yeah.
I have had the unfortunate experience of teaching an SAT or ACT class in the cafeteria.
Ooh.
Yeah, on the stage in an auditorium behind the curtain.
Like the Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, pretty much. And that is not ideal for the students.
Yeah.
Not only are you arranging temporary seating, but you have to bring in a rolling whiteboard or even a rolling chalkboard.
Yep. And
it just creates this sense of it's not a real class for the students.
Okay.
So it's less, the students just don't feel like it's a real class, and they're not as in tune with what you're teaching. They're not as dedicated to the experience. Yeah. It's just psychological, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
So a real classroom is ideal. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And modern technology is useful but not essential.
Okay.
So whether it's a plain dry erase board or a true electronic whiteboard,
yeah,
that's not the biggest concern.
Okay.
Just some place that you can put stuff up on the board and have notes.
Okay.
What I have found useful, especially if you have materials that you've set up on the computer, like a PowerPoint or scans of real tests to show what it looks like for students, is an overhead projector or projection system.
Okay.
And a lot of the electronic whiteboards can be turned into screens.
Yep.
So if you have that system in your school, that's ideal.
Yep.
But again, that's money, and not every school system has that level of technology. So just an overhead projector and a pull-down screen.
So you don't need one of those like Promethean boards or anything like that. I mean, you can just get away with just a chalkboard.
Right. Need is a strong word.
Right.
Is it helpful? Is it useful? Again, that's the whole point of technology, in my opinion, is if it's making things more efficient and saving time and energy, then it's useful and it's great.
Yeah.
But it's not essential.
Yeah.
I've taught this class with a literal, classic green or blackboard,
Yeah.
chalk, and a group of students and the book.
Okay. What about computer lab, right? So some schools, the only space they have available during the day is a computer lab.
Yeah.
Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? Would you just stay away from it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Okay.
But if you do have a choice, I don't think currently the computer lab is the best choice.
Okay. Why?
Well, because a lot of times computer labs are set up, and again, for the folks listening on the audio podcast and not watching on YouTube or any other video channel, you can't really see my hands, but the computer lab, a lot of times it tends to be set up where the computers are facing the wall.
Yeah.
And they're along the wall because that's where the power sockets are. You can't necessarily have the computers in the middle of the room,
right.
or set up like a traditional classroom where all the materials are facing the front of the room, where the teacher is there with the whiteboard or blackboard.
Yeah.
So now you have a situation where the teacher is at the head of the classroom and all the students are facing away.
Okay.
And so that makes it challenging to communicate this type of program.
Yeah.
The other thing is that currently, neither the SAT nor the ACT is a computer-based test.
Yep.
They are currently both paper-based tests.
Yep.
Now I say currently because the ACT has been promising for the last half a decade to turn the ACT into a computer-based test, not just computer-based, but computer adaptive. just like the GRE. And if
Right.
you're a parent or teacher at home and you've taken the GRE, you might have experienced a computer adaptive test. But their trials, I believe they were in Tennessee and Kentucky, failed miserably. The computers crashed. There were never enough computers. So it pushed them back. They were supposed to launch that by 2015 when they announced it in 2012. And it's now 2018 and it's still not happened. So they say it's coming in 3 years, but they've been saying it's coming in 3 years every year. So that's the ACT people. The SAT people have hinted that they want to do that, but I think they're waiting to see if the ACT people can pull it off before really pulling the trigger on it. That's at least my opinion. I don't know that for a fact. No inside, dope or little birdies telling me anything. So they're both paper-based tests currently, so the computer is not as important for the average student. Plausible and viable accommodation is that some students get to type the essay on a computer. And having computers available, a Chromebook, a laptop, a tablet, might be helpful for those individual students, but I don't think it's necessary currently for the entire class.
What about practice tests, right? So, so we've run many programs, right, across schools, and I can tell you, we've had practice tests done in cafeterias, we've had practice tests done in classrooms. I mean, what's your suggestion?
I'm actually a lot more flexible about practice tests. Really, it's about noise.
What's the best, if you could, from scratch, right? What would be the best situation for a practice test or,
That's a good question. And again, it depends on the school. Again, I am really flexible about that. It depends on what space you have. A cafeteria is fine for that. The big thing for me is making sure that it's quiet. So during the school day might be a problem. So a weekend practice test or an after-school practice test might work for that. But again, I don't recommend after-school practice tests because the students are tired. The other part of that is that if you have separate classrooms, usually now only one teacher proctor can keep an eye on those students. So there's both good and bad about that. So if you do have the situation where you're doing a school-wide sophomore year or junior year practice test, you need to have enough proctors for the classrooms, however many you're going to have, plus at least one extra who can float and spell proctors for bathroom breaks. Just like they do, the College Board does for real tests. If you do it in a giant space like a cafeteria, the benefit to that is that all the proctors are kind of floating and they're there to cover each other much more easily. But again, you're in a giant space. It's hard to keep track of students. You've got to separate them. How much space do you have? So there's positives and negatives to both setups, and I think both are equally viable. I actually don't have a preference.
And actually, something I just want to touch upon that you were just saying is, so during the day, right? So if a school is wanting to build a program that's going to be running during the school day, when during the day is the right time to offer a test prep class? Because test prep material is, there's a lot to get through, right? And so what's kind of the right frame of mind? Because we've run programs where they're in the morning, they're in the afternoon, and, we've seen different results. So, what would you suggest?
Well, this is something that I think a lot of schools already struggle with in terms of the daily schedule. I know from my personal experience teaching in-school programs, both here and for other companies in my history, that the last period of the day is the worst. It's the 2 o'clock or 2:30 class that ends at 3 o'clock. Those students are done. They're burnt. And the thing about test prep is that it's not what they're used to doing in class every day because it's not knowledge-based instruction. It's much more about problem solving. So they're really exercising a part of their brain they're not necessarily using in their other classes. And I'm not saying test prep is harder than chemistry or physics or calculus. It's certainly not. The material is of a lower level than these high-level classes. But it's not about the level of the material. It's about approaching it from a completely different direction. It's like if your school is lucky enough to have a study skills course that maybe your guidance counselor teaches or one of the other teachers teaches, that course is incredibly important and not like any of the other more knowledge-based classes. And again, you don't want to teach that the last period of the day.
That's true.
The other thing is right before or after lunch is less, both before and right before and after lunch is less ideal than like a middle of in between. So, but again, not as bad as the last period of the day. Early in the day is fine. They're fresh, but they're cranky.
Yeah.
when they just get there.
But I think that's kind of the key point, though, right? Is that the material that you're learning and that you're practicing in test prep is different than these knowledge-based courses, right?
Yes.
So you want to just kind of be somewhat mindful of that.
Right. Again, the big thing I would recommend is try not to do it the last period of the day. And again, if you have a rotating block schedule,
Yep.
that's going to come up.
Yep.
But that won't be consistent. That'll be like that one time out of every 5 or 12 classes, it's the last period of the day.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
But if you have a more standard schedule where the students are like B period is always 9:15 to 9:59,
Yeah.
that means that last period of the day is always ending at 2:30 or 3:15 or whenever. I wouldn't recommend the test prep class for that.
Okay. Got it. Well, great. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for this one. As always, questions, comments, please leave them below, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for listening.